So next we are going to start our Statice, and we've got some absolutely beautiful colours for you this year. Now the good thing about Statice, as well as being able to dry it of course, is that you could, if you wanted to, do a second sowing. Now I've popped it in your handbook, so if you do a second sowing in about 4 or 5 weeks time, Statice are actually quite hardy. They're more hardy than a cosmos, for example. So what will happen is you'll get fresh flowers starting to come through September and October, and they'll flower right into November, just as everything else in the garden is starting to look tired. This is the Statice. It's just glowing in this autumnal light, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. Now this is a slightly later sowing because it grows so fast. So I did 2 sowings of it this year. I will explain exactly what I did in the spring grow along, and I'll also put some notes in the handbook for you as well. Now Statice are quite hardy, they are a H4, however they're also incredibly fast growing, and I find that they can bloom all the way to the end of the season. So I don't start them quite as early as I could do because of their hardiness rating, because otherwise I'd have nowhere for them to go. They're a great one to follow on from the hardy annuals. So here are the Statice, and they're being planted 22 centimetres apart. It's like an instant garden, isn't it? I've almost finished planting up my bed there. I've got a little bit more still to do, but I've got an awful lot of white Statice. I've got quite a few spare plants because the germination was just completely off the scale, wasn't it? So good. So I thought what I'll do is I'll put a nice little corner of white Statice here, and that will soften the edges of the brickwork. This Statice is such a success here on this corner. It's just really softened the corner, and then we've got these beautiful stems. This is the Statice. It's looking absolutely incredible. The foliage is so lovely. Its common name is sea lavender, and you can see why, can't you? Look at that. Just starting to get the first of the flowers now. This is the apricot Statice and all its glorious shades. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that. Now Statice need light for germination. Here are the seeds. Let me lift them up for you. So you don't want to cover them, you just want to sow them on the surface of the compost. I'm just going to sow the usual 1 seed per cell. They germinate really quickly, so if for any reason you have an empty cell, I sometimes forget to put a seed in every cell, especially when I'm chatting to you at the same time. But if you've got any empty cells, then once everybody else has germinated, you can just go back and sow another seed. They grow really quickly. Statice just need a nice warm germination period. So if you don't have a heat mat, then you can just take your seedlings up to the house, or if you do have a heat mat, I've got space in my greenhouse, so for a nice uniform rapid germination, I'm going to put them on my heat mat, propagator lid on. Do this even if you're taking them indoors. They need the lid on to stop the compost from drying out. Heat mats will dry them out, and also the warm environment of your home will dry them out as well. So hats on until you see germination. Statice benefit from some cool growing conditions following germination, which is perfect at this time of the year because although the days can be nice and warm, the nights can be chilly, and that will make your Statice grow into strong, robust plants. Quick update on the Statice. I'm just giving it a watering. Other than that, it's looking really good. This is the white that we're growing together. Now the Statice is looking very healthy indeed, but it won't stay that way unless I bump it up. And I've got my 15 cell tray here ready. Make sure you squeeze the tray from underneath so that you don't tug the stem. And you can see, look at those roots. A perfect little plug plant. So I'm just going to make an impression in the compost. You can just put them in the cell and then fill the compost in afterwards. It's just I wanted to show you how to do it, and it's easier for me to do it with one hand, like this. There we go. I have 2 plants here that were sharing a cell, and you can see it's detrimental to their growth. So I've just carefully teased the plants apart, keeping as much compost as I possibly can around the roots. For clarity, this is just the other way of doing it. Just pop your plugs in your empty cell tray and then come along and fill the compost in all around. Just lift the plugs slightly if you need to filter in the compost evenly. Go, and I'm just going to give these a lovely water to settle in the compost and give them a drink. There, look at that. So this is the apricot. That's my favourite. Here we go, I'll hold them up against the black so you can see the varying shades. We've got this darker one, and then there's a mid-tone, and then this one here is almost cappuccino in its colouring. So all I need to do is turn them upside down. I mean, for goodness sake, that could be a hanging installation in its own right, couldn't it? Absolutely stunning.